So should South Africa emulate China? Last week, Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa led a business delegation to China. The main focus was on state-owned entities and what South Africa could learn. State-owned companies dominate the Chinese economy and they've achieved amazing feats. But there are currently concerns about competitiveness. China is also an authoritarian country where the government directs the economy and brooks a little challenge. The strong state has been accompanied by controls, and we certainly felt this when we tried to feed videos over the internet. The internet is monitored and it's not clear if we were targeted, but the speeds were slow enough to scupper many of our transmissions. So here's an excerpt from my interview with Ramaphosa in Shenzhen that we couldn't bring to you earlier. A problem was raised by one of the companies. First, let's say that Huawei, who we visited today, said that it would invest in skills in South Africa and create more jobs. But another company, Haier, said that it had concerns and something had held it back from investing in South Africa. And that was one of the concerns was about strike action. And I want to know if at home government is trying perhaps to be too many things to too many people. And perhaps even in your person, your background represents these two forces that sometimes seem to be pulling in different directions. So workers, no findings against you, but workers were very upset about the email that you sent before Marikana. On the other hand, business wants you to understand their concerns about policy uncertainty, about why they're not investing. Are we trying to please everybody?
I think in the end, the challenge today that faces all of us is how we find a balance between two competing objectives which will be pulling one way and others the other way. And if you can find that balance, government needs to find it in managing the economy. Because on the one hand, it will be business entities, be they private or state-owned, and on the other hand will be labor. And what we need to do is to find that fine balance between the two. And at times, you find it, at times you don't find it. But we are committed, and I personally am committed, to finding that balance, because what we should all be focusing on is what is of greater interest to all players in the economy, in the marketplace, and employers should not be seeking to exploit workers, and at the same time, workers should be seeking to say, yes, we're working for this company and we want it to be profitable going forward, because through that we are able to retain our jobs.
China has achieved great feats, come out of poverty to become the world's second largest economy. But there's perhaps been a cost of transparency. There are concerns about the corruption trials happening at the moment. If we talk about the economy, at home, economists are questioning China's GDP, looking at the numbers. From what I can tell, Chinese people are very positive about the economy, but partly, perhaps, because they don't even hear the bad news.
Well, our relationship with China is based on mutual respect, mutual recognition of what each party brings to the relationship. And China, in relating to us, deals with us with utter respect, and they respect our sovereignty and say, you as South Africans know how best to run your own affairs. And we also recognize that they know how best to run their own affairs. So we don't believe that we're qualified to interfere in how they measure their GDP. What we do have is deep appreciation and applause for the fact that here is a country that has lifted more than 300 million people out of poverty. A country whose companies that our South African economy interfaces with companies that are really world-class, that are excelling. Here are a people who are disciplined. Here are a people who are well-educated, who do their work extremely well. Now, that is what we connect to.
If I relate it back to home then, you said that you had confidence in the way the Chinese were dealing with the economy. However, we've seen the government intervene quite artificially in the markets that are meant to be the space between buyers and sellers to freely interchange. One minister this trip I heard saying that, you know, things are very different at home. If the state tries to support SOEs, SAA for example, it lands up in court. But isn't that what we've chosen? We've chosen a free market and a rule of law, courts that can rule against government to protect our economy, our free market and our democracy.
Yes, we've chosen a particular path, and it's a path that we chose freely, of being a democratically run country where there's a separation of powers between the government, the legislature, and the judiciary. We've chosen a path where our democracy is supported by independent institutions, and that brings about good checks and balances, where the influence of one is not lopsided against what others would seek to do. And in terms of supporting the lives of South Africans, we've chosen a mixed economy path where the private sector and the public sector plays a role. In China, they have a strong public sector that plays a key and dominant role in their economy. In our country, the private sector plays a dominant role, but the government, the state, manages the economy. So our view, and my strong view, is that that is a wonderful path that we have chosen. So when state-owned enterprises can do well and excel, we should support them.
The developmental state has been bandied about in South Africa since the dawn of democracy. Perhaps we could have done more then. It's come back in the National Development Plan, talk of a developmental state. If we go that route, because it does seem that this trip has focused on state-owned entities, so we're abandoning that notion of privatization. But then what is the space, what is the role of the private sector? Because I look around and small businesses that we want to create jobs, some of our best companies, I don't see them here on this trip, for example.
Well, some of our best and efficient and profitable businesses have not yet seen the value of engaging and interacting with a China, for instance. And I would have loved to have come here with some of our big companies so that they are more and more exposed. Those companies from South Africa that are operating in China have been doing well, they've made money, and we wish more and more of our companies should come here. Yes, we have embarked on a developmental journey as a country where we want the state to play a key role in the economy of our country. And some of our state-owned enterprises are operating in difficult market segments. The airlines are not easy, and so therefore they need quite a lot of help and support. But others, for instance, ports and logistics, Transnet is doing extremely well. And we need to strengthen Transnet more and more. The energy company, our Eskom, faces enormous challenges, and we can learn a lot of how They have navigated their way around many challenges here in China through their state-owned energy companies. So there is a lot that we can learn on both scores, private sector as well as the public sector. If there ever was a market where our South African private sector can learn anything, this is the market. And coming here means that you just come observe and see what you can learn. Does not mean that you take everything that's bad and that's good. You only take what is good and see how best you can grow your companies, strengthen your companies, and make them more streamlined, efficient, and profitable.
Interview with Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa in China. Let's now move